morning and welcome to WLCN's weekly Hogs and Frogs report with my sidekick Kirby. He would tell us all about the hogs or the frogs. I'm not certain which. Anyway, I think we ought to introduce Viewpoint as the program that it has been for several years here at WLCN. Program of politician perspectives and personalities.
Mm-hmm.
I got it right?
P's. Yep.
Oh, good. I remembered after all these years. First thing we do is start off with a kudo or two. We always try to start this on Viewpoint. Noticed in our neighborhood, utility linemen were out there working in the cold. Those boys go to work no matter what the weather says. And so it's just like our police, fire department, and state and local police. They're on the road no matter what the weather says. So kudos to those folks who go out there and in truth, the men who go on the highway put themselves in the danger line often. So let's go ahead and introduce our guests this morning. We got two guys who crawled out of bed. One changed his plans, and the other, well, I guess he did too. So, go right ahead.
From what I heard in the lobby, I thought I heard him say that if Bill Gossett calls, you always answer the calls. So here they are. So joining us today, we have Joe Schaler with the Central Illinois Veterans Commission and Dan Benedict, who is with the Veterans Assistance Commission. So, gentlemen, thank you for changing your plans and gracing us with your presence.
Hey, Dan, let's talk about the Veterans Commission. That's a quietly run operation there on the corner of Pekin and McLean Street, if
yes,
I'm
sir.
correct.
122 North McLean, yes, sir.
Now, are you going to have to move offices, sir?
Well, that's to be determined. We're looking down the road, maybe expanding, growing in the future, but as of right now, no definite plans, but
well, that's good to know, because that's the place that a lot of folks go for a little consultation and reinforcement of what they need to be worried about. So, Dan Benedict, as I said off air, when I came home from the Second War, we had the office. It was in the courthouse there. It was the first floor courtroom, and a fellow named A.J. Berryhill, and his brother-in-law was Claude C. Tull, who was a county clerk for years. Well, that was in the days when they just decided to run, and run they did, and that was it. And in those days, the sheriff and the treasurer would switch jobs back and forth, and nobody thought a thing about it. The jobs were being done and done well by the incumbents, so nobody thought that was just okay to do that. So, as you walk into that office, Mr. Benedict, is there one particular problem that hits you as you go through your door and say, well, what am I going to do about that today?
I would say mostly is getting veterans their compensation, disability benefits for injuries they received while serving, while deployed, even if it wasn't during a deployment, say they were in a training accident, long-lasting effects. If it's still debilitating today, getting them the compensation and the health care they need to overcome those injuries.
Well, that's pretty complicated, though. I mean, you have I'm sure that if somebody needs some financial assistance, they've got a little tightroping to do.
Right. Well, there's a lot of forms. There's a lot of evidence. You kind of have to be part counselor, part detective, getting the story out, finding the evidence to back up the story, and then you have to navigate all the red tape of the VA. And that's why I go back to school every year for a week to refresh on all the latest and greatest changes that the VA puts out. And they change a lot. They change the forms a lot. They change the laws a lot. So it's a lot to keep up with. And it's kind of overwhelming for a lot of my veterans to try to navigate that system. So that's why I'm there. I'm there to help them navigate that system and get them the benefits they deserve.
Well, I think our listeners ought to know how important service is to all veterans, but in particular some veterans who are bothered with particular problems and so forth. And I asked you off air a question, and I'm going to ask it on air again because I think it's important to realize you do see veterans who are mentally concerned about particular problems in their lives, whether it relates to their service or post-service life, and they don't know where to go. So you're the doctor when they open the door. You've got your stethoscope around your shoulders, and you have to advise them. And it's a tough job.
Well, luckily, I'm not the smart one, but I know the smart people. So
there's the answer,
right? Yeah. So I refer them out to counseling services that we have over at the health department. We've got vet centers in Springfield and Peoria, and there's also more traditional psychiatric help within the VA system. So there's a lot of different services, and I try to team them up with what they're most comfortable with. A lot of times, if they're just coming in there and maybe they've been kind of repressing things and not talking about it, they may not feel comfortable going to maybe a clinician. So maybe they'll go see a social worker, or maybe they'll just want to talk with me, and then I'll talk about my experiences and relate them to them, and hopefully get them more comfortable seeing the clinician or the social worker or the counselor.
Now, correct me, you were a Marine?
Oh, no, I never claimed that title. I was an airman. I was in the Air Force, 23 years.
I knew I liked you for a reason. I want to say something about the Marine Corps League. They get things done in this community. I know firsthand. I live out there at the Christian Village, and they're always out there pitching in, doing something that needs to get done. On behalf of the community, on behalf of the Christian Village folks, I want to thank the Marine Corps League. I think it's Bob Grau post. Is that not right, Mr. Schaler?
Yes.
Named after former businessman Robert Grau, who died way too early.
Yeah, it is.
I thought it was appropriate to name that post after Bob Grau.
Yeah, I wasn't a member then, but it was an honor to do that. Yeah,
that's really neat. Yeah. There's a let's shift gears just a minute, Mr. What's that fellow's name?
Which one?
I was just yanking his chain a little bit. No, seriously. Mr. Schaler has been deeply involved, along with some other members of the Marine Corps League and other veterans, in this program called Tiny Homes for Veterans. Just explain a little bit about that, Mr. Schaler.
Well, it is designed to provide a permanent home, a mortgage-free home for a veteran.
That's remarkable.
And we go through a selection process, and I say we, that'd be the board that goes through it. And we've been extraordinarily blessed with a lot of volunteers, a lot of donors, and I'm surrounded by people that get things done, and I am truly the guy that doesn't know how to do much, but I know people who do, and that's my claim to fame right now.
Well, that's a pretty doggone good claim to fame, by the by, knowing where to get it done. Particularly in this is a real true charity. I might start and tip my Air Corps cap, Mr. Benedict, to Haji Patel, who gave us some real estate, corner of 7th and College Streets, on which to build three
homes,
tiny homes.
Right.
And where are we on that completion now? We have 2, I believe.
We're all finished. We have 3.
3 are done.
3 are done.
All by volunteer labor, by the by.
Yeah, and 3 veteran homeowners, and we were very fortunate at the last dedication to have Jackie and Paul Campbell that donated 2 more lots to us out on Decatur Street. So we'll tackle those in the spring and get 2 homes put up out there. So we're moving along. We're moving along.
Well, it's a wonderful service for somebody, I'll tell you that. 648-5510. Our guest this morning, Danny Benedict and Mr. Joe Schaler. And for the first thing we need to do is pay attention to the sponsors, or otherwise there's no point in us sitting here. Go right ahead, James. And right back live in the station here this morning, WLCN. Our co-host with the Viewpoint program is Mr. Loyd Kirby, who kindly stepped in here and helped us out. And we now consider him a part of the show. Matter of fact, I think we'll sign the papers over and give him 51%. And our guest this morning is Mr. Joe Schaler, Marine Corps League representative. Those guys really get things done. And Danny Benedict, my kind of guy, an Air Corps guy, and he gets all the things done for veterans too, and that's a very, very important office. That office goes clear back to the end of World War II, and I have no idea about World War I, of course, but so it goes back. There's a lot of history in that office, and daily you get people who have problems, and they're serious problems to them. Even a little problem to a veteran can be a kind of a major impact on him.
Right.
So your office is open every, give us your office hours, Mr. Benedict.
So we're open Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, and we're there pretty much every week. You know, it's just me as an employee, so there might be a few days of the year that it's closed for time off and whatnot, but Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30.
And we'll locate that office right by the Lincoln Public Library, catty corner from what was known as Latham Park.
Yes,
By
sir.
the way, in the good old days, the American Legion had their own band, and it's become a community band since then, part of the Lamb's operation, Lincoln Area Music Society. But in those days, a lot of the old World War I guys were playing their own instruments. And a fellow by the name of Dave Hanger was conductor of that band, and he could play the piccolo. And there's a military number called the Stars and Stripes Forever, in which there's a little bit where the piccolo just takes over. Boy, he could make that thing sing. And in those days, people park around and toot, instead of applaud or clap, they'd toot their horns. Pigeons flew for miles. So, Mr. Benedict, in order to fulfill your position, you can't just walk in there and somebody say, "Well, you're going to be the advocate for veterans." It takes a lot of you have to go to some schooling.
Yes, sir. To be a veteran service officer, which I am, so it takes a veteran service officer to prosecute a claim for a veteran. The Department of Veteran Affairs has some very strict rules on the accreditation for a veteran service officer.
I'm sure that's correct.
So I'm accredited through the National Association of County Veteran Service Officers. And if you can just pronounce all that, then that's halfway there. The other half is going to a week-long school, the initial accreditation school, and it's pretty intense. You have to pass a test at the end of it and do really well. And then you have to go back every year and get continuing education, because things change, laws change, benefits change, forms change. So it's a continual process of keeping the knowledge fresh and just not getting stagnated. So yeah, it's a pretty rigorous process.
You know, Dan, I'm sitting here thinking of veterans records, and sometime in the post-World War II years, a big warehouse burned in St. Louis, and I just wonder if that even today here, 2022, still have an impact on some families that man's records burn up. And
definitely. I got a call yesterday that it affected a widow.
Just yesterday?
Yep. And they've tried really hard to rebuild the records, but, you know, the fire burnt, what I was told, for over a week at that warehouse. So, you know, putting out a whole bunch of paper in a giant warehouse is pretty difficult.
I'm not certain about that, Mr. Benedict. I think that was back in the early 50s. Somewhere in that, a long time ago.
Yes, sir.
And everybody was worried about that at the time, and what a big problem that was going to be. And here we are 50 years later, and sure enough, the problems are coming up, and they're almost insoluble.
Right. And it's one, I'd like to, just one quick story. I was helping a family. The veteran got out of the service in Virginia, took his records up there, his DD-214, that he had a paper copy, filed it with the clerk. Then he moved here, and his family was trying to get some information on his service. Well, his service records at the National Archives were burned up, but I was able to call out there to that county clerk and get a copy of that, give it to the family, and send a copy to the National Archives so that his service was at least somewhat preserved in the National Archives. So there's different ways to preserve those records, but it's hard.
What is the biggest problem that walks through your door?
I would say getting the compensation benefits for the veterans for the injuries that they incurred during service. And then a lot of the widows. I'd say that the second biggest problem that I see is the widows seeking benefits after their husbands pass away and what they may be eligible for. There's different periods of service. If a veteran served during wartime, didn't have to necessarily be in conflict, but if they served during wartime, then there might be some aid and attendance, like with somebody helping them out around the house or assisted living or nursing home. If that veteran had wartime period service, then there might be benefits for that. And it's just getting that knowledge out to veterans and their widows and their families.
Today, here we are, 2022, and we had a veteran, Spanish-American War, fellow name was John Wiley, and he was what they called then shell-shocked. And he was a little off base most of the time. He walked around town. Nice man, no problem. He delivered newspapers for the Courier on the courthouse square. And but he definitely was mentally impacted by the war, and that was known as whatever they called it those days.
Shell shock?
Shell shock. I knew you were around for a special reason.
I'm just listening to you. So.
Tell the paymaster to make sure his name gets in the public.
So, Mr. Benedict, we were talking about mental health services being one of the areas that you kind of help folks out with. What other kinds of services do you offer, or are there maybe some programs or some benefits that local residents don't know about that you kind of nudge them toward to kind of assist?
That's a great question. Some of the local programs that we have that we implemented at the Veterans Assistance Commission is we got a 15% discount at the rec there in Lincoln. And so what that is if you're an honorably discharged veteran and you live in Logan County, you can get a membership to the rec at a 15% discount, and there's no out-of-district fees. They waive that, so you don't actually have to live in town. So that's one of our programs, and with New Year's right around the corner, it'll probably be getting pretty popular. Another program is if you're a veteran and you don't have dental insurance, we've got the SIU dental program there at the health department, and you can get free cleanings twice a year. So just come see me at the office. I'll get you a voucher, bring in your discharge paperwork proving that you're a veteran, and we'll get you taken care of there. Let's see. You gave me some notes. What was
counseling service? Counseling
service, yes. I touched on it before with some of the services that we have locally. We have counseling there at SIU at the health department. We'll bring in the vet center from Peoria because we're in their catchment area. They'll come to the office and provide counseling service. And that's some of our local programs, yes.
I'd like the public to know about a service I experienced by a dentist in Bloomington, Illinois. Ogletree, Dr. Ogletree was the gentleman's name. I got out of the chair and it was almost $500. No charge.
Oh, wow.
No charge. I said, doctor, and he said, you're a veteran, I do those things. And I'm just one guy that sat in a chair, so in a period of a year's time, what a tremendous impact that must be.
For sure.
But I've always remembered that, and I thought if I had another serious, I'll go back, but I'm going to pay him in advance, so I'm not going to take advantage of his good nature. But I thought that was a very neat thing to have done, and that's kind of not uncommon in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Mr. Schaler, you have a partner in this tiny homes business, besides all your military partners, a lady who's been involved in this in a voluntary way. And I mentioned her because she's really important to we old-timers at the Christian homes. Marcia Fernandez, she's been here at this microphone with us, and she does great things for us out there. Bakes us some nice goodies and fixes, make sure we have coffee. But she's been vitally involved with Mr. Schaler and the veterans in this tiny homes thing. So I think I'll just tip my hat in her direction, not expecting any further coffee.
Yeah. I think she has the rank of general, and it's well earned for all that she does. She is a phenomenal fundraiser, motivator. She's always looking down the road at the next thing to do and getting people coordinated. There's so many little things behind the scenes when we're building a home, planning to build a home, and you have somebody like that it's invaluable to have them there.
Plus the fact that she's got the best looking grandchildren that God ever created.
I know.
They seriously are.
Yeah.
And their daddy is a state policeman in the academy, teaching in the academy down there. So Cole, congratulations to you, sir.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to have Marcia coming in and work with us. She's doggone pleasant, and she gets things done.
Yes, she does. And Dan's a part of our board. Annie Coors, who's the mayor of New Holland. We have Patty Becker, who's the director of United Way, that's on there. Mayor Welsh is a part of it. Chuck Gonzo, our city treasurer.
Those are getting things done people.
All of them bring something to the table that just makes us cohesive, and we have, helping us build. We've got Spud Newhouse, and we've been very fortunate to have a veteran, Tom Cade, out of Broadwell, who he's a great electrician, but he helps us a lot in the building part of it. And
so give those folks a pat on the back, folks, as you see them in at the grocery store or even at Old Joe's counter.
Yeah. If they're sitting down there, they got a problem.
Yeah, well, if they're sitting there, they got a problem. If they're in and out on an errand, that's another story.
That's another story, yeah.
Danny, how long now have you been a commissioner? Been several years now.
Been, about 6 years now.
Yeah. And Mr. Schaler kind of kicked the bucket down the road to get that moving, and it was through his efforts that we have that Veterans Commission office there. And as I indicated a few minutes ago, it's sure easy to find.
Oh yeah, 122 North McLean Street, right there, just down the road from the courthouse. We're to the side of the library, next to the church, caddy corner to Latham Park. So. Can't get much more central than
precise
that.
Than that, no. Yeah. Is your caseload pretty heavy, Mr. Benedict?
At times it is. There's always a lot of work to do on a claim because you have to reach back and pull medical evidence from years gone by, or maybe somebody comes in with records that are 3 inches thick. Mm-hmm. And you have to read through all the terrible doctor handwriting and all the medical jargon, and sit there and just piece it all together. So it's pretty much constant.
So the veteran who has a claim, or maybe he just thinks he has a claim, sometimes that's not the case.
Sometimes,
and that's a little difficult to find.
Right. Maybe a good time to talk about the Camp Lejeune that you've heard the lawyers have really been advertising for Camp Lejeune, and hurry up and file, because now anybody that's spent some time at Camp Lejeune has realized that there was toxins in the water during a certain time period, and so now they've opened up the law to where family members, contractors, anybody that was on that base drinking the water can now file for some money if they've got certain conditions. But that doesn't mean, if you were there and drank that water, that's obviously bad. But if you didn't develop any conditions, then there's no claim. So I get a lot of phone calls that, hey, I was there, what can I get? Well, I was like, well, what's going on with you? It's like, well, I'm healthy as a horse. Well, then you can't get anything.
Yeah. Forget. Joe, were you at Lejeune in your Marine training?
That's where I was discharged from. But I think what Dan is going to cover about the fact that I do get VA benefits, and I'll let him explain the difference on that Camp Lejeune.
Right. So the VA never pays twice. So if you go to one of these lawyers and you file a claim, you're a veteran, and you file a claim for something that is on the list, you do have a condition, and that lawyer gets you a result, well, he's going to take his cut, whatever that is, whatever you guys work out.
It'll be substantial.
Right. It's not going to be cheap, because it's not cheap advertising.
Yeah.
So, and then you want to go file a claim with the VA, or maybe you already did. Well, if you've already gotten money, they're going to withhold that out of the settlement. Or if you want to go file a claim later, they're not going to pay you until what you would receive has been paid off versus what you received in the settlement. So I would encourage veterans to see a veteran service officer. Don't, it's your claim. You can do what you want, but a veteran service officer isn't going to take a percentage. All the services we offer are
government sponsored.
Government sponsored. We don't take a penny of your benefits. Through the graciousness of the tax levies that the citizens voted for, that pays my salary and my office to be there. And so we're not taking any money from any of the benefits. Everything that we get for the veteran stays in that veteran's bank account.
648-5510. Our guest this morning, Mr. Dan Benedict, the Veterans Commission Office there on North McLean Street. And our other guest this morning is a fellow in the Marine Corps League and a fellow veteran. But I always Danny, I always thought that Joe was a little different category than you and I. We train differently.
Yeah. Well,
where did you take your Air Corps training?
I went to Lackland. Lackland is the gateway to the Air Force
Base out in Texas. Well, I went to the United States Air Corps Basic Training Services in Miami Beach, Florida.
Oh, wow.
We lived in hotels. Seriously. The government took over those. This was their job was to educate their kids in one skill or another. And the basic training was not much of an important thing. You get the basics, but that was it. And so the government took over these hotels down in Miami Beach, Florida. And they also took over what was known as the Ritz-Carlton. Anyway, the Stevens Hotel in Chicago. And that was our headquarters while we went to radio school in Chicago. So for the first probably 3 months of my life, I lived in a hotel in the Air Corps.
Bill, you're not helping our reputation. They call us the chair force.
So, did you have room service?
Really roughing it?
Right.
Our physical training was in Grant Park, which was across the street from Michigan Boulevard, and they had a bridge built across there to go over to Grant Park from the hotel. And we had a little Martinet second lieutenant right out of OCS, a little smart aleck. And he was in charge of base training. Nobody liked him. And so they closed that place down. Some of us went to South Dakota, some of them went to Scott Field. Anyway, we were in South Dakota, in Sioux Falls, and we're out on this field training exercise. Had the standard 6 foot high or whatever it was platform to stand up there. And he gets there and he says, "How many of you men remember me from Chicago?" And some guy in the back popped off. So we don't want to lose our license, so I'm not going to tell what he said in the background. Anyway, well, it made him mad. And so he had us all double timing around the field. Well, we had a base PT officer who was a really square guy. I mean, he was a straight guy. And he saw what was going on and stopped and asked what was going on, and the lieutenant told him. lieutenant was a 90-day wonder, you know.
Yeah.
And base PT officer says to him, in effect, well, Lieutenant, you do what you want, but on this base, the officers lead the men. If you want to run them, you have to run yourself. And that lasted about 2 more rounds, and that was the end of that. So we run into those things in the military in various times. Joe Schaler, the immediate plans now for the next tiny home. Go ahead, sir.
We're going to get started out on Decatur Street in the spring.
Yeah, let's get it a little warmer.
Yeah,
man, that's tough going.
Yeah, we started the second home, the one at Sixton College. I remember Spud and I were out there trying to get it laid out in the sleet, in the snow, in the rain, and I thought we need to back this up a little bit and get into warmer weather, which eventually we did, but we'll get into that into the spring. So we're doing a lot of planning right now. We're looking at 2023 on fundraising activities, and we're kind of opening up a little bit more. It's a possibility of maybe going outside of Lincoln to build a home, or possibly joining forces with another group that may want to build a home and begin the process of tutoring, if you will, working with them through the process of what it takes to go from nothing to the house being completed and a veteran's in it. And again, there's so many little things that have to take place that we get questions about, well, can we do this? Well, you can do this, but here's what you have to do. And it kind of gives them a little quick perspective that it isn't just showing up and, you know, putting a home up. So there's a lot that goes into it, and we get smarter with each home on how we're going to do the next one, and we're just and the support that we've been given has just been incredible. So it's
now, Mr. Schaler, how does a veteran apply to be the owner of a tiny home?
Well, on our website, which is civeteran.org, or you can go to the Central Illinois Veterans Commission website, you can download a application on there, and the veteran can complete it, can nominate themselves, or they can be nominated. The 3 that we have, the 3 veterans and the 3 homes completed, were all nominated by other veterans or family members. And but we have some applications we received where the veteran has nominated themselves. Probably the one thing that they'll see when they get that application is they cannot presently be a homeowner. That's going to be the one thing that would disqualify a veteran, is if they already own a home. So but the rest of it, you know, we're looking at financial ability to make sure they can pay the taxes, that they can take care of all the utilities,
the insurance
maintenance, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the financial end of it. And then we are obviously going to interview them. We're going to call references. We're going to talk to those who referred them and try to get this down to the best possible candidate we can that would fit there.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, we're approaching the end of the year, so for tax reasons, folks might be thinking of donating. And you mentioned how you know, it sort of takes a village to make those homes come together. If folks are interested in helping out through donating, how would they go about, like, are there certain things you're most in need of, and how would they go about making donations to your organization?
Well, we probably the thing that we receive the most, obviously, is cash donations. And we have been here at the end of the year, we've gotten several checks that have come in for those that are looking for tax deductions now. And We would, I guess, if we had a preference, we'd rather do it that way, because as we're selecting items for the next home, we're able to sometimes get a little better price now that we've built 3 homes, and we're getting a little more savvy about how we're going to go about it and more cost effective. So it's, but yes, that's a great question. Yeah, if they were looking for a donation for tax purposes, they can send it to our office at 120 South McLean. Hopefully the post office will get it to us or to Dan's office, and or they can go into Heartland Bank and make a donation there, or they can go online to our website and click on the PayPal and make a donation that way, and we're more than happy.
You're getting a little technical for some of the senior citizens out there, though.
I know.
But seriously, there is a mailing address. If somebody's disposed to think, well, maybe Uncle Og died and they ought to make a contribution to the tiny homes in his honor.
Yeah.
So they would send that to what address, sir?
120
South McLean Street.
Yeah, it's in the Farm Bureau building.
And so both of you obviously deal with veterans issues. Do you kind of work together on certain projects? Are there any areas of overlap where you both kind of sort of tag team if a person comes in with a certain issue to either one of your organizations?
I guess from my perspective, of course, we work together on the Tiny Homes project. Dan works, he gets phone calls, I'm sure, about the medical needs, where somebody needs a ramp or a wheelchair and they call him, so he's going to defer them to the Marine Corps League, I'm guessing.
Yes. Yep.
So I think that for me would be the biggest area. The other one is just stay out of his way and let him do his job.
Yeah, Lieutenant Harnicky and his Marine Corps League men do a great job for us. And speaking of wheelchairs, Bill Dennis has got an avenue or an opening. He knows where to get the right wheelchair for the right person. Mm-hmm. And for instance, a big guy like Danny here, average wheelchair is not going to cut it for him. And they have to get out there and find the right piece of work that will work for them. And so the Marine Corps League, they do a heck of a job. And if you see with some of those, be nice to them. Those jarheads are pretty nice men.
And they do an outstanding job.
Yeah.
I get a call, and they're requesting a walker or a wheelchair or hospital bed, ramp. They handle a lot of different things. And I'll call my go-to guy is Bill Dennis. I'll give him a call, and what do you know? Within not always, but usually, depending on the circumstance, that day or the next day, the wheelchair is delivered. They give him a power chair, or they've done this or set up a schedule to build a ramp. They are very responsive, and they're on it.
Yeah.
And that's local help.
Yes.
Yeah.
On the air, on our television screen, we see a lot, and I really believe in this. Tunnels to Towers. Now, I think that's a valid charity, helping these men who are involved in 911 out there, and in many cases giving them homes, mortgage-free homes. That's a wonderful thing to do. Tunnels to Towers. I think that's a out-of-county charity. I like to keep the money here in Lincoln, but out-of-county, that's a great charity.
So are there we were talking about donations earlier, are there particular items or particular needs that you folks have that, if folks were looking to donate something and they wanted to leave it up to you, what would best serve your organization? You mentioned cash, of course, but are there any other items?
Yeah, we've gotten gift cards to, for example, RP Lumber, and to Menards, which we do a lot of work with Menards. They'll pass along gift cards to us for that. We get, when we're building a home, all those volunteers tend to run on their stomach. It's like an army. We have so many people, thanks to Marcia Fernandez, who coordinates this, showing up with food, showing up with donuts, with lunch, drinks, you name it, and it can be overwhelming.
We never went hungry.
We don't go hungry.
But
and it can be,
these are needed items.
Absolutely. And it can be 100 degrees out, or it could be 20 degrees out. These folks show up with food, and we're very grateful for that. So, yeah. And aside from money, we do in that build, we need volunteers. We need boots on the ground to help do certain manual labor. They don't have to know how to operate any type of machinery. Just be there.
Bring a basket full of sandwiches.
And a basket full of sandwiches, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
sign a 2x4. Sign a 2x4. Put
they can sign a 2x4.
Tell us about that signing of 2x4s now, gentlemen.
Yeah, I would say probably in March we'll start with the schools. And one of the things that we've gotten to a point on a quick story where this will be our third or fourth trip into the county schools. And when we go out to, let's say, do a board signing at the market, it is very funny now to see the kids walk by and they see those 2x4s, and they stop and they run over and start signing. And Mom and Dad, what are you doing? Well, this is what we do at school. We sign these. And so we've kind of gotten a culture going there of those kids participating. And when those 2x4s go up in that home, and the veteran gets to see that before they're covered up, there's several thousand signatures there from our school kids in this county, and that really is a very powerful message to that veteran to see all these signatures and well wishes. So it's we're very fortunate to have that. Without being a tattletale on them, I don't think any of the veterans in the homes didn't tear up when they saw those messages of gratitude and love. Yeah. And it's just a very powerful, very emotional thing to know that they're surrounded by all that community support, all that love that's literally built into their home. Yeah.
Well, the old clock ran around on us, but Joe Schaler, we appreciate your taking time out of your personal day to be here and be a part of this discussion about what we're doing for veterans in the community. Thank you, sir, and thank you for arranging for Danny to be with us. Danny, you're serving, I know it's a paid job. That minimizes what I'm about to say. We really appreciate the effort that you put through on behalf of your clients who come to your office. I think you mentioned that St. Louis fire many years ago, and what an impact that's having in here to 2000 today. So we appreciate your being with us, Danny Benedict. You want to sign off, my friend?
Thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening to Viewpoint.